So, welcome to another tour video. If you haven't seen these already, check out the playlist on this, and there's quite a few varied vehicles on this. Bear with us, we're actually inside, we're on top of the Peak District at the minute, and the wind is absolutely mental. So, we've come inside, we're going to take a look around this van, see what you think. Right, so I'm here with Pete, and basically I've gone from the Land Rover to the Sprinter, and the main reason for it is I saw this van at the Overland show. What we're going to do, we're going to have a look through it, start to finish, and see what he's done, how he's done it, and this is a proven vehicle that has done a lot of countries and a big overland trip. So when you bought this vehicle, it was a utility board vehicle. How did you prioritise what you were going to put in it for the use that you were going to get out of it?
This started life Scottish Power vehicle, and it's an unusual specification with fairly low ratio diffs and a low roof. So the first thing we looked at was how to get a bit of headroom back, and pop top was the obvious answer. There was a couple of Sprinters with pop tops on it when I built this, so I went with them, had a look at them, and took some advice from a guy that's done a lot of miles in his Sprinter, and decided the low roof was the way to go for us. First thing we had done, fit the pop top, because everything else is built around the pop top. So you build the van from the top down. You need the wiring in, you need the pop top in, you need to do all that, and then you can start building down for your furniture and working it out. A lot of the furniture came from Evo Motion Design. They supply this kit for a high roof van. So then we've had to modify a lot of these components. So it might look very much like the Evo kit has come off the shelf and been fitted, but it hasn't. The bed's been shortened and cut down to lower it, because it being a low roof fan, you'd be hitting your head when you rolled over at night. So we've lowered that about 1.5 foot, so the mattress just flows into the side pods rather than halfway up. So which means cutting down everything underneath the bed. It means cutting down the shower cubicle, altering the height of the floor, because we wanted to put in twice the amount of insulation for cold countries. It's fairly useful in hot countries as well. It stops the heat rising up underneath, helps you maintain a bit of a cooler temperature in here. And then everything was built for weight. It's very difficult to keep a four-wheel drive Sprinter under 3.5 tonne and fit everything you want. So if you want to start fitting a winch, you want to start fitting big water tanks, they come from factory with a 100 litre tank rather than an 80 litre tank is standard on the Sprinter. So you start adding all that up, and you want to carry 4 people, you don't have a lot of room for weight. So you need to be very careful how you build them out with that in mind.
So realistically then, you've done big trips in this. How long could you stay off grid in this vehicle?
So we've done 2, in this vehicle we've done 2 big trips. One was quite a local shakedown run around Donegal and Ireland, which I don't think we used a campsite the entire time. That was the second year of COVID, so it was very difficult to get onto a campsite. And the reason we chose Ireland was because you could get a ferry to Northern Ireland without signing any documents and just drive over the border. So it was very difficult to get out of the UK at the time.
Yep.
In that August period when we did that. And last year we did, so we did all of the Balkans through Croatia, Bosnia, all the way down Albania, Macedonia, and we didn't really plug in once. Well, I don't carry a hookup lead, so that tells you everything about how long I can go off grid. That was 5.5 weeks. A lot of that was driving sort of the Albanian dirt roads. They're famous off-road mecca in Albania for overland vehicles, and we were doing, it was taking us 3 days to drive 60 kilometres at one point, just camping on the side of the road overnight. We've got probably enough water if we don't shower to last us a week. We can get maybe 2 showers out of the tank if we're frugal with it. We've got an inside shower and an outside shower, so if it's hot, we shower outside. If there's people around, I mean, in Ireland our showering go outdoors car park while the missus was buying shoes. So, 60 litre tank.
And you do have 2 water systems on this, don't you? You have what I'd consider as the grey water that you use for your cleaning and things, but then you've also got your drinking water tank as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so we've got a 60 litre underslung tank that sits in the sill on the driver's side, so opposite the fuel tank of the vehicle, so it balances the weight out nicely as well from the 100 litre tank of diesel. And then we have just a 14 litre jerry can under the counter with a drop-in caravan pump, 12-volt pump, that I will fill from like known good sources. So I'll happily fill it from springs in the side of the road in Eastern Europe, because they're drinkable water, they're fresh. But in the UK, I'll tap water, or I'll go into a supermarket and I'll buy 5 litre jugs and empty those in.
Yeah.
But it's just a nice way of keeping a separation to the water.
100%. It's what I do with the Lifesaver.
Yeah.
And I recommend anyone does it, because having masses of clean water, I know you can put filtration systems in, but filtering water that you're only going to wash yourself in, it just seems a bit excessive, and it's more weight and more kit to go wrong, isn't it?
It is, and I filled this from rivers, and I filled it from hose pipes that looked a bit iffy, that I wouldn't drink, but I'm quite happy to wash up with it, and you know, I'll boil it up if I need to use it for in a worst case scenario.
While you're out and about, I'm predominantly in a location where I'm using a lot of solar, but you're always on the move, being in the Overland thing, and you're covering distance. What have you got power wise for charging and using electricity? Because like last night and the night before, you've got every light in the world on, and it didn't seem to faze you that I'm still in the rationing electric stage. So
we've got it's all built really around 120 amp hour lithium in the boot. It's charged by a 30 amp Victron DC charger. It's wired somewhat unconventionally, so the utility sprinters, they come with what's listed on the options list as an EK1 connector, and what that has is when the engine's running, after about 3 seconds of the engine actually starting, a pin goes live on this connector, and I've wired that directly back to the DC charger, so if the engine's running, it's charging. It doesn't matter what voltage it's sensing from the vehicle's charging system, so it's constantly charging. Which allows us to charge back the 120 amp hour battery quite quickly. So I found before I wired it like that, it was only really charging on overrun, going down hills, etc. If I was accelerating, it was not banging the amps into the battery quick enough. To supplement that, we do have solar. We've got a 160 watt thin panel on the roof. I've mounted it on a sheet of aluminium to use it as a heatsink, rather than bonding it directly to the roof, so I can just unbolt that with 3 bolts, take it off and swap it for another panel.
That's a real good shout, because the amount of times I've seen people where the solar panels it's been stuck on, it's failed, and they've had to stick another one over the top. Yeah,
and it looks awful. Yeah, and you're adding weight, so you're adding double the amount of weight for one panel. The aluminium adds a small amount of weight, but it's kind of threefold really. You can swap it and get rid of it. It's acting as a heat sink under the panel, and it's giving it a bit of strength. So because the roof's fiberglass, it will flex very slightly. And every time you do that with your panel, it's going to break the panel eventually. So, and it also almost like a safari roof, because the airflow can go underneath it because it's spaced off by about that much. Whether you'd be better with a solid panel, I don't know. The wind resistance of a solid panel and the whistling noise would be probably somewhat off-putting.
There's people that will argue for both ways, isn't there?
Yeah.
When I've always had flexible thin ones, until Ecotree did my setup and they put a solid one on, and it was a total game changer for me. Yeah. But I don't know how I'd do that on the van that I've got now. So yeah, that's an interesting way of doing it.
I think we probably up the capacity of the battery. I think we sat still for 4 days in Albania at one point, and it was 40-degree heat, and it just about, I was parked under a tree, so I wasn't getting much hit from the solar. We were running a pair of 12-volt plug-in fans overnight, charging iPhones and tablets, etc., running the fridge, and it was getting down to about 40-30% on the battery, which is kind of my threshold for not, you know, that's my let's start turning things off threshold. Yeah. That said, within the next day of driving, it was back up to maximum. And as you say, our normal trips, we don't sit still for more than 2 days, and that comfortably covers for 2 days in the winter. So the summer it's...
How have you found it with, because I know over Christmas you went up to Scotland in the snow, didn't you?
We did.
So how did you find it? Because what I've noticed as well, sat in here the other night, is you've got 2 heat sources.
Yes.
And they work together, don't they?
They do. So that came about because you can't run a heat pipe from the front to the back, so you can't pipe the blown air heating. I didn't want a hydronic system because they have quite a head they got a head of weight. They're fairly complicated. There are a lot of water connections through a vehicle, which I think in an overland rig that you're using aggressively, you're just adding more complication for things to fail, especially in a metal-bodied vehicle that's going to twist. And they've got quite a head on power usage because they're constantly hunting with the glow plug on and off on the diesel source. Yep. With the gas source, maybe not so much. So in the front, we've got a 2.5 kilowatts Everspasher that gets turned on in the winter the moment I drive off the drive. and it doesn't get turned off until I drive back home again. And in the back we've got a Truma combi running on gas that does our hot water as well.
And by doing that, you've got a real good sense of redundancy, haven't you?
Yeah.
Because everybody now, everything has to be electric. They all want electric induction, and to me, you've got diesel heat and gas heat.
Yeah.
And worst case scenario, you've got engine heat.
Yeah.
So you've got 3 heat sources. Then when it comes to cooking, you've got your gas. You can then do stuff outside. You've got multiple sources of cooking then. So that's a real good shout.
So the only thing we use electric for really that is beyond lighting in the fridge is we have an inverter to run an espresso machine because we do like our quick coffees.
Yeah.
And I think that saves a lot of gas not boiling the water. And we also use the electric for charging up things like drill batteries and stuff.
Yeah.
I carry a little Makita Hoover because when you're driving through a lot of dusty countries, so Albania was just dust constantly, and we were vacuuming the bed to get the dust out the bed and the sand out the bed from beaches and stuff. It just makes life a bit easier.
Yeah.
And also charging up the Karcher window vac. Honestly, in the winter, just vacuum your windows dry. Don't mess around with the cloth.
Yeah.
So quick, and gets rid of all that moisture back out the air.
So, as regards for lighting and control systems, I can see up there you've got the aux beam switch panel, which I love those things. They're so versatile. That's doing. Looking at it, is that all your outside lighting? Is it pretty much? Or
so running off this, we have the awning light. We have the bonnet pod lights, and they're wired somewhat complicated way really. So at the minute that one turns them on and off with the main beam.
Yes.
And this one I can turn them on and off when the engine's stopped.
Yes.
To light up a field. So if I hear a noise at night, I can ping that back and hit that button.
Yeah.
Or I can do it from bed with my phone.
Yeah.
The beauty of these panels being Bluetooth. There's one interior light. So again, if I want to turn the light on and I'm in bed inside the van, I can do that without getting out of bed or touching any of the other panels. We got the air compressor on there, so I can fire the air compressor on and off from the aux beam panel. So again, if I'm outside the van, I don't need to get in. I just pull it up on my phone, hit the air compressor. I can pump my tyres up. I use it for blowing out air filters and stuff as well.
And that, it seems an expensive item when you compare it to the cheap Chinese where it's just a switch, but when you start to look at other options, they're actually really good value for money.
It's brilliant as well. So when we first bought the van, it had a bunch of wiring underneath the seats for its previous life, and they had a load of switches on there, and they had this massive umbilical cable that ran all the way across here, down under the floor to here, and it was about this thick. Whereas this is tiny little cable, and all the wiring's under here. And underneath this seat is basically my junction boxes. That's why I really
like it, because it's just keeping the wiring to a nice, easy place near your battery. But if you want a switch panel, check out the description, and there's a link, and I get a drink out of that.
The wiring in the back is running off CBE's.
I've not seen one of them before. I
didn't want, when I built this, for it to be a full-on. I didn't want the interior to be, as you see some Overlanders. I wanted creature comforts. And the idea of this was to have something that you could live in for months. I mean, we spend sort of 6 weeks in this, so a month and a half at times in the van, and we do as much as we can during the year as well. And it had to be somewhere comfortable that we could spend nights in. And there's often been times where we've pulled up somewhere and the weather's been so terrible that we haven't even got out of the van. We've pulled up, we've had our dinner in here, we've had a shower, we've got into bed.
And that is the beauty of this setup, is you don't have to get out. You just have to walk between the seats, turn the seats round, you're home.
It's just, you don't even need to get out to put the blinds on the windows.
No, they are good. Who makes those ones?
They're Remis. These ones, I think, Magnum Motorhomes supplied these to me.
It's very quick and easy, and I think the biggest thing I like about them is it's not another item that's in a cupboard somewhere getting damaged.
No, that's right.
It's permanently fixed,
there.
isn't it?
And in the summer we were using these, if we were going into the shop for half an hour and we've been running the aircon in the van while we're driving, we pull the blinds down in the back, we pull the blinds down here, and you go in and you come back and the van hasn't been baked through the windows. It's kept all of the heat out.
So you've got the bed at the back, so you've put the flares in the side. So I measured mine the other day and it's dead on 6 foot to the walls with no insulation, which for someone our size, it's just a no-go, isn't it? You're sleeping on a diagonal.
You can't do it with your missus in the bed as well.
No.
It's a recipe for disaster.
So you've got a lovely option for this, and this is exactly what I'm doing with mine as well. How wide do you reckon you've got that?
Well, I'm 6'5", and I can comfortably sleep across that. So I guess it's probably about 6'5", 6'6" across.
Yeah.
It's just big enough. I wouldn't want to go any wider with it, because you'd need to start altering the way the sliding door works. You wouldn't get good view out your rear view mirror, and you'd end up actually probably hampering your ability to get down some lanes. But because the van tapers in as it comes up, although the pods look really wide, they're actually not any wider than the wheels at the bottom. No. So you're not losing anything sort of width-wise.
And it's a real good option. I mean, so especially for like, say, a medium or a high roof, because then you don't need to have a pop top, do you?
No.
But for like this now, in this weather with this wind, there's no way you want to put that up. So it gives you the option, doesn't it?
I've had it up in worse when I've had to, but you don't have to in this.
Yeah.
We've had it in our T5 where it's been up in worse than this, when we had a 4Motion T5 before this van.
Yeah.
And we were in Norway, and we had but we had a real hairy moment actually at Nordkapp. It was blowing so hard, it blew a motorcyclist off the road in front of us, and the pop top was trying to lift at the back.
Right.
So one of the things when I built this was I made sure to add extra anchor points at the back, so the front straps of the pop top are mirrored at the back, so I can strap all four corners of the pop top down tight, so there's no chance of it moving. And I think that was one of the things I learned, and as you do when you build these things, you learn little bits as you go along, and you apply them to the next build.
And another nice touch with this, you've actually got the bed out of here at the minute, haven't you?
Yes.
So you've increased your height by what we say that is 8 inches?
This isn't far off a high top height in the middle of the van.
Yep.
It's a good, probably 5-6 inches at least in the middle. Yeah. I can't stand up in it, but I can't stand up on a high top.
No.
So, but
it does give you that bit more, doesn't it?
I can easily move around, and how long do you realistically spend stood up inside your van?
To me, this is still way, way bigger than the Land Rover.
Yes. Yeah,
so
it is.
It's like anything's a bonus. And the way that you've got the seating set up now is where I'm sat, I could actually just use your cooker.
So that's exactly what I do.
You just sit there and cook.
Yeah, I sit there and cook.
The old Land Rover setup is you sit on top of the fridge and cook.
Yes.
As long as you plan your seating and things, you don't need masses of...
No, you don't.
You don't walk up and down your camper much, do you?
No.
I think the only compromise that you've got is your shower room.
The shower was the compromise, and there was...
And anybody that complains about that, it's still better than like the Land Rover with no shower or showering outside.
It's... When we built this, we had a list of things that we wanted it to be, and having an internal shower toilet cubicle is one of them.
Yeah.
So we went from a long time ago towing a small caravan behind a Land Rover to the T5 four-wheel drive, and that was too far towards a car. It wasn't quite capable enough for what we wanted, and it was a bit small, to be fair, inside. The killer for that was when we did Norway in that van. Brilliant trip, but
that is a weekend van, isn't it?
We were ready to come home.
Yeah.
And that's the only trip I've ever done where I'm ready to come home, because the weather was against us for a lot of it. You couldn't cook outside without putting the awning up. You couldn't really make the bed without being outside. So you were going to get wet, you were going to get cold no matter what you did.
Yep.
Things we learned from that were we wanted to be able to shower inside. We wanted to be able to comfortably spend a lot of time inside if we wanted to.
Yep.
So certainly in Ireland, the Irish weather's renowned in summer for being windy, rainy, and we spend a lot of time in the van. When we did Albania, we lived outside, and this was just a bed on wheels. We didn't really spend any time in it. That said, we parked up in city centres, and you can still do that in this vehicle. It doesn't stand out quite as much as, say, a long wheelbase high roof would. It's just that small enough you can put it in a parking space in a car park, and it's not going to get in someone's way.
Yep. I've been daily in mine at the minute, and it's big, but it's not obscene big.
Yeah,
it cruises well on the motor. It's probably my favourite vehicle for cruising on the motorway, because you're above the spray and
lovely driving position.
It is. It
you
really
can see
is.
it across the top of the Land Rovers.
Yeah,
it's good like that.
And like for stuff like this, I know mine's not got the best suspension for the weight and all the rest of it at the minute, but it's still got straight over the top of the moors, and it did what it needed to do.
And once you build it, that weight's going to come.
Once I've put some weight in that, I think it's going to work well. And following you, yours performs so much better for being heavier.
Yeah, it does.
And just having a bit lower tyre pressure, so it is a capable platform. And sat here now, it is a very, very comfortable place to be. And if people want to see these, you're on Instagram, aren't you?
We are, yeah. We only really do Instagram, but there's a lot of photos on the Instagram of the trip. And if you want to know anything, drop me a message. I'll quite happily you know, give you a bit of advice if you want it about building one of these, or if you wanted to know where we've been, what we've done. If you see something in a photo and you want to know where it is, drop me a message, I'll share it with you.
Awesome, awesome. So if there's anything that you're unsure about, any information, have a look in the description box down below. As always, check out the playlist that I'm sure is on the screen now, and we'll have a look at any of the other vehicles, and I'll see you on the next one.